to Not Only Books. I'm Jason Reynolds.
And I'm Craig Kubik.
And today we're going to talk about a collection that Southwestern Seminary in Fort Worth has. And it is a collection that's kind of unique to not only our school, but the state of Texas as far as we know, and in some cases, the United States. And so as a Baptist seminary, this institution kind of traces its history back to the separatists who were leaving England back in the 15 and 1600s and going to Holland. They become what is known as the Anabaptists, and then they start to move back towards England and then to America. And so there is actually a tie between this collection and our heritage as Baptists. But Dr. Kubik, why don't you tell us a little bit about some things in this collection?
So this collection came to us in 1989 from England. It was purchased by the administration. I think it was Dr. Hemphill was president at that time.
Right.
And it was in Gillingham, England, which is a suburb of London, in a 4-story building, a house, a home by a collector, a Baptist minister in England. And he had done that for many years. And somehow our Baptist history professors became aware of him through, I think, the Baptist World Alliance. And they decided to invest in purchasing this collection. So at that time, part of it came to Southwestern, and then they gave him permission to keep part of it and still continue his research. And so he sent some portions on over to us. And then eventually in 2014, a little more came, and then 2016 and 2017, I had the opportunity to go over to England and finish bringing the rest of the collection here. So it's about 10,000 items, and it's great, unique in the fact that it's one of the strongest English Baptist history collection, not just Baptist collection, English Baptist historical collections.
Okay. Well, so you have some things kind of just chosen that you want to show, or?
Yes, let's walk over to this side of the collection, and I'm going to reach up and pull down these 2 volumes. They are the New Park Almanac from Spurgeon. So these 2 volumes are, there's only, as far as we know, we own them and the British Library.
Okay, now you said a name, and just in case not everybody that watches this knows that name, you said Spurgeon.
So Charles Spurgeon was the preacher of the Victorian age. So if we wanted to compare it to a 20th century preacher of such high stature, that would be Billy Graham. He was known. So this would be a predecessor of Billy Graham. So Victorian London, we think Queen Victoria on occasion went to hear him preach. And although she wasn't not a Baptist, of course, but he was so well known. He had the Metropolitan Tabernacle, and as well as a few other churches that he ministered in. So this is an almanac, and those who don't know what an almanac is, so almanac is like a general information book that people would have had and continued into the 20th century. They published it. It would tell you calendar dates. It might give you general suggestions for homemaking, for the farmers type almanac, might give when the new moons were and suggested times of planting. So this almanac has a little bit of that, a little bit of social etiquette. It's just all kinds of information that is classic for the Victorian era.
Interesting.
So we have one copy, and the other is in the UK.
Very nice.
So,
and then from Spurgeon, you wanted to move to where?
I would like for us to step back over this way. We're going to look at a serial or a periodical or a journal, magazine, that we believe we have the only known copy of in the world, and that's entitled The Biblical Magazine.
Oh,
So
okay.
you can see it's bound nicely.
Yeah.
So it would have been published as a magazine in a series. And what is it? It's a Baptist magazine for what was called, they called them the separatists or the dissenters.
Right.
This is in the description about it. It says for Baptist dissenters. So they would have been out of the Church of England. They were outside of the Church of England, right? And it gives general church information, sermons, suggestions, just information about their churches and life during, and this one is like 1801, 1803 is the limited publication for this. It later combined with another magazine. And so we have the one and only copy you can find in the world for those who are researching English Baptist. This library is a great place to come.
Huh. Well, that is really interesting. It looks like this one contains even letters maybe written to different people, or maybe they had a dialogue going back and forth within the different series of publications. Maybe some sermons are printed.
So, yes.
So really something that someone who was maybe out in the smaller parishes out in the country might want this so that they could see what kind of things are happening maybe in other parts of England, particularly what kind of sermons or Bible studies might be produced and that they might be able to use in their church.
And it connected them, as you said, as they were spread out throughout the UK.
Nice.
Goes right there.
Okay.
So you can see there's lots of journals that
Yeah.
span the different eras. He collected material from the 1500s up until the 20th century.
And it seems to be pretty wide in its coverage of the UK, which is what we would hope. And we see even some Welsh publications. And then even things that are identifying maybe specific churches or groups of churches by location.
That's correct. It's quite interesting to see that, as you said, the Welsh, which is a totally different language, there were Welsh Baptists and are Welsh Baptists, and they're writing and speaking still in Welsh.
Yeah.
So for those of us who think the UK is all English, it's not exactly true.
Right. Well, and I remember coming across Welsh Baptists in hymnals, that they would publish hymnals for big song singing events, and that was a big push in Wales, was the communal singing, and particularly in churches. But to see so many other publications from Wales, it's really impressive to see that it's much larger than just a couple of songbooks. So very nice.
And as you're pointing out, it's not just English, it's really the Baptists from the UK.
Right.
So speaking of that, there are many copies of church histories for going across the UK. So those folks who are doing genealogy are looking for a lineage connection. Perhaps they migrated here to the United States. Those give lots of information with names in it. So you can take a look at that as well.
Good. All right, so I think you have one more set that you wanted to show us, and I believe they're over here at the other end.
Yes, let's go over here. we just want to take a moment and show you some old volumes. This is by Dr. Gill. He wrote many commentaries, and this one is a nicely bound one, and it was done in 1746, this issue, and it's a commentary. And you can see it's bound on cords, and take a feel that while I grab the other one and describe it.
It's almost like hide, very fine suede, like nubuck almost, very very soft and supple. Oh, beautiful.
And the tooling, we'll call it the tooling, and if we take a nice close-up here, you can see it has a little design that goes along here where the binder would have taken probably a rolling tool, and while it was still wet or soft, rolled that impression into it. And it's so unique because those things were not mass produced. He probably cast that iron tool himself, or had a metal worker in his area do that. So to recreate it, one would have to actually, spend hours and hours trying to recover the design to repair something like that. So each binder would have had their own set of tools, and even today, bindery, we typically would have something created or created ourselves if we're binding it.
Okay.
So here's the same series, and you'll notice it's different. The binding is not, it's much slicker, and this is done about 11 years later.
Okay.
It's the same commentary, same guide, bound on cords. And so it's just kind of interesting how things are published, because it takes time to set up the print. It wasn't done electronically. These things would have been manually set, each of the pages, and printed. So it takes time to run these things through the printer, and then to be bound, because you've got to send the paper off to a binder who would sew the set, sew the paper together, put the leather on it and the boards, and then it's ready for sale. But it takes a long time to do a series of these to be sold.
I can imagine. Wow. Well, that's really nice to be able to see some older 18th century commentaries, and to be able to actually hold them and look through them and know that they're not going to fall apart in our hands. We tend to think old books, be very, very careful, but the paper is of a higher quality, so it doesn't tend to fall apart as easily. Less acid, more cotton, and then of course the binding is sturdy and nice, and so that's really a really nice item to be able to look at and hold.
Very durable.
Yeah. Well, so I think that's a pretty good idea of what this collection is, the British Baptist collection. We saw periodicals, some large reference, some periodicals by famous preachers.
Right.
And that's only a few items within the 10,000 that you mentioned. So definitely a collection to explore if you get a chance to go to Southwestern in Fort Worth. And if not,
well, how does a student or how does a researcher get to look at these items? So that is what I would ask you, because you know how that goes.
Well, the easiest way is to contact the library, talk to either the reference librarian or maybe the archive librarian, and ask them, what do you need to do? Typically it's come with some identification. They want to know who you are. And you have to schedule that time in advance. Don't just show up to your library and say, hey, I want to go see this really interesting collection. You don't know what they've got going on. So you've got to take time and plan for that visit. But then just have lots of paper so you can make notes, because they don't want you taking a lot of pictures, even with your phone and the flash off. They want you to use their equipment if they have a way to scan it. But I would say definitely contact the library and find out when it's available and what their expectations are. But generally, I think libraries want you to come and look at what they've got. So call them and email them. Call Southwestern, email Southwestern, and let them know you're interested.
You'll usually have to use the books in a special designated area, right?
Right.
Typically, because they are precious and valuable.
Yes,
So
yeah.
they'll want to make sure they safeguard their materials from, so that they'll be around for a long time.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us for Not Only Books.